Wait, what was I doing? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Tales from the Junkyard. I'm still waiting for parts on, for the, the Barracuda over here. And figure, well, instead of just waiting around, we're gonna do a kind of 6 months review on the Fiero. Now, I've had it for a little over 6 months, and I've been driving it a while, and I've been getting my impressions of owning one and all that good stuff. And I think I've developed enough experience to at least give you my review of what's going on. And instead of giving you a straight up review like I did with the review of the actual vehicle on that one video, I think I'm just gonna do a list of the top 5 things I love and the top 5 things I don't really love, perhaps even hate about the vehicle. So, yeah, let's go from there. Okay, so number 5 on our list of what I love about this vehicle is the styling. I mean, look at this thing. It's beautiful, it's great, it's sort of a timeless styling, at least to myself. And I think it looks really, really good. It has that very, Italian styling, and you can never go wrong with the Ttops. I mean, I think these are freaking cool. They're so awesome. Some people might think they're a bit dated, the 80s kind of thing, but I think they're really, really cool. But again, that's just my opinion. Anyway, moving on. Number 4, what I really like about this car is the handling. The handling in this thing is surprisingly outstanding. What I mean by that is it's one of those things where it outperforms the sum of its own parts. It's really, really well put together. It's very solid, and it'll surprise you. So it's really, really cool to actually have something that, isn't given that much credit for its handling prowess, and yet it does really, really well. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. That's number 4 on the list. All right, number 3. Number 3 on the list of things that I love about this car is its significance to the history of automotive manufacturing in the United States. You guys got to remember, this is the very first mid-engine vehicle ever produced by an American manufacturer. Before this, GM had made the Corvair, which was a rear-engine car, and that, was kind of akin to this, but it was basically sort of, think of like a Porsche almost, or a Volkswagen Beetle, but with 4 doors, a lot longer, way better, designed for American roads, all that good stuff. It was actually well designed, aside from the suspension. And I'm getting on a tangent here, but before they figured out the suspension, kind of like this car, they were running the same wheels and tires, but different air pressures in the back and in the front to kind of even it out, which would it was just weird. Anyway, it didn't work right until they figured out putting bigger wheels in the back, because all the weight's in the back would make me maybe fix the issue, and they did. And that's what they figured out with this one eventually, right? The last year of this was the best year. The final years of the Corvair were the best years of that vehicle. So anyway, but that's how I feel about this car. It's very significant to what it was, what it stands for, as for what Pontiac finally achieved after trying so hard for so long to get something like this out on the market, and the fact that they did it. They proved they could do it. It's a shame that they never had a chance to fully develop it to where it could have gone. But, I mean, at the very least, we got one. So that's cool for me, at least, right? All right, cool. All right, so number 2 on the list of things that I love about this car, the rarity of it. It is so cool to have something that just isn't around very much. People notice it. The older people that remember the car think it's really, really cool. The younger people who kind of recognize the shape because it's got that European sort of, Lotus, Ferrari, 435 type kind of look to it. It's sort of it attracts people, and that's really cool. It starts up a conversation. It's really, really cool to have something like this that not everyone else has. It's just cool. And it's fun. It's fun when you take it to Cars and Coffees and things of that nature. Well, once I start taking it again to Cars and Coffee, whenever that is. Anyway, that was number 2. And the number 1 thing I love about this car is nostalgia. The nostalgia I get from this vehicle. Now, this vehicle, to me at least, represents a time when I had poster cars like the Lamborghini Countach and the Plymouth Prowler and the Viper and all those things that almost every car guy, right, had on their wall, a poster. To me, this was a poster car type thing. I never found a poster of one of these, but that's the kind of feeling I get from this car. And I've always wanted one since I was younger, and I've always dreamt of driving one. And I finally have one. And so I really, really enjoy the fact that it's bringing me those feels, those, nostalgic vibes, and I'm having a great time with that. So yeah, that's my number 1 reason that I love this car. Now let's move on to the things I don't like so much. This will be good. All right, so top 5 things I don't love about this car. And that would be nothing, absolutely nothing. The car's perfect. I love it very much. Thank you guys for watching the video. Just kidding. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I don't like about this car is, and this is a bit nitpicky, okay, but the wheel setup. Now, it's really, really cool that it's got 2 different, sizes in the back. And I don't mean by like the tall, like height, right? Because these are 15s in front, 15s in back. But if you remember, the front ones are narrower than the back. And because of the setup of the suspension in the front and the difference in the rear, it's really hard to find replacement or aftermarket wheels for this that'll work on this car. Like because of the front suspension, it kind of throws all that out the window. The earlier vehicles had, the wheels in the front were the same as the wheels in the back. They were the same width, height, the whole 9 yards. Because of that, you can find a wheel setup for those all day long. These, you can't really do that. I mean, you could, but it's a lot harder, and it's gonna end up being a little more expensive because it's gonna be harder to match the style of the front of the wheels to the rear wheels because of that discrepancy. And you end up having to usually go with something custom, and that's just, it's added cost, and added cost is boo, not cool. All right, so number 4 on the list of things I don't love about this car is the rarity of it. Now, I said earlier about the rarity being cool and all, and that is really, really cool. But if anyone's ever owned a classic car or a vintage vehicle or anything, rarity, while cool, isn't always a good thing. What I mean by that is parts, availability of parts, and price of parts. And this is no different. Yes, it's a Pontiac. Yes, it's more mass produced than a lot of rare cars out there, but it's still rare. It's still a specialty vehicle. And because of that, some of the parts become hard to come by. And some of the stuff just tends to go bad because they were bad, from the factory. They weren't meant to last that long. And let me just give you an example real quick. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this, but you see that sort of weird top bridge at the top of this lens? You see like that blemish and that right there. And kind of goes all along the lenses here. Now, if you weren't able to tell on the first video I did of this car, that tends to happen to these over time. So the way these are is it's a laminated kind of black piece inside the lens itself, and that begins to delaminate itself over time. Heat, pressures, expansion, contraction, all that good stuff. So eventually these just fall apart. Thankfully, there is a gentleman that reproduces the rear lenses for these cars, specifically the GT version, which is what I have here. And those are really cool. They're an upgrade. They won't delaminate like these did. Unfortunately, they're not cheap. They're a fair price. Don't get me wrong. He did it all himself by licensing with Pontiac and all that good stuff with the name and everything. But they are expensive. And that's the unfortunate part of having one of these things. Stuff just gets more and more expensive, but I guess that's the nature of the beast, right? Moving on. Also on the rarity are these seals. Now, if you guys don't know anything about Ttops, the Ttops are notorious on these things to leak. It's okay because I got a garage and I'm protected from like the weather and everything, but if this were to happen, say I decide to go on a cruise and it starts to rain or something, then I'll be thinking about rain getting into here and possibly getting into the inside of the car. Right now, it seals fine. It's not a big deal. But like if the seals ever shrink or there's an issue with that, that may happen. And not so much that that's a problem with these. Like, okay, just get new seals. That's the problem. No new seals for this. You really can't find them. So that kind of thing, again, the rarity becomes an issue there. So stuff like that kind of, it's cool that it's rare, but not cool as well. So, there's that. Okay, so now we're down to number 3. And number 3 of the things I don't like about this car is this. Now, this engine looks really cool to me, okay? To me, this thing looks really cool. It's got the nice intake manifold, Fiero on there. That's really, really cool. But it's still just a 2.8 liter V6 with 160 to 170 horsepower. When new, this probably has about 120 at this point. That's okay, and because it's got the 5-speed, that's fine, and it kind of handles it. But this car is 2,700 pounds. This really should have a power plant that produces at least about a 200 horsepower for it to be a, legitimate sporty car. So it's one of those things where like the power sort of lets it down. Yes, it's 80s tech. Yes, it's 80s stuff. And I get that. But there was a potential to do more with it. case in point, a lot of guys put V8s in this. They swap out engines all the time. The Fiero forums on like Facebook and all that stuff, they pretty much like 9 times out of 10 swap this engine out. So it's really, really cool that support and that stuff's out there, but that should have been done from the factory. Honestly, I mean, yes, as a tuner, as a car modifier, you know, at heart, I don't mind doing that stuff. That's really, really cool. However, it would have been nice, something this special, you know, would have had something special under the hood or the bonnet, you know. That's just me. I don't know. It's a missed opportunity there. But I get it, you know, they had to work with what they had. At least we got the Fiero intake manifold, so that's cool, right? Number 2 on the list of things I don't really like about this car is the fact that it's rare, right? And we covered that, and the seals and all that stuff provides for a very lackluster aftermarket. There isn't a whole lot in the range for these vehicles. Yes, I said earlier that there's a lot of, you know, engine swaps and things of that nature, but like say you want to do coilovers on it or something, or you want to, you know, do a few things there just isn't much to it. There isn't any like coilover setups for this. They all have to be kind of custom made and sort of pieced together, the rear and the front. Stuff like that, you know, there's just really not a whole lot of aftermarket for this. And this being a rarer car than most Fieros because of the year and because of the options on it, you also have like a hesitance to like actually modify the vehicle. The Barracuda over here, this thing's been modified since I got it, so it's not a big deal. It's never gonna be, you know, numbers matching anything. This is different. This actually, you know, is the way it came pretty much. And you think about it a little bit differently now. It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna mess with the value of the car because I wanna modify it, right? So there's that hesitance to have fun with the vehicle in a modification way, in a you know, tuner kind of thing. But I'm gonna enjoy the car as much as I can. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really want to modify the vehicle. But if I ever wanted to, because I'm a car guy, you know, it's harder for me to consider doing that. But anyway, that's number 2. All right, and number 1 of the issues I have owning this vehicle is, and first let me give you some context. This is very regional based. So number 1 on the list of bad things is smogging it, emissions. In California, which is where I'm at, emissions is basically everything. You know, it's notorious for its emission laws. And while that's a good thing for the environment and all that stuff, they're also kind of dumb in the way they're implemented. Right now, as it stands, any vehicle 1975 and older is exempt from any emissions law, right? You don't have to have emissions, anything, because there's just so few of those cars, it doesn't matter. But that can be said for anything 89 and down, anything 95 and down. You know what I'm saying? So like the law only applies to a certain amount of vehicles, but it kind of leaves a lot of other vehicles that aren't really around anyway out of the picture. So 1988 isn't exempt. That means this has got to pass smog. And to get an older vehicle to pass emissions is just harder. Seals aren't the same. If you haven't serviced the evap systems and all that stuff in a long time, hoses break, all that stuff. So it's harder to own one of these or justify owning one of these when you have to repair all the emissions equipment. So that's my biggest number 1 gripe about this vehicle, is the added cost of having to maintain its emissions equipment. But you know, I guess that just comes with the territory. Hopefully the rules change, but not holding my breath. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to stop the video. Hope you liked it. Please let me know what you guys thought. And please like, share, subscribe. Helps the channel a lot. And let me know what you think. I'll see you guys next time.